you have to treat them differently because they operate differently.
What do you mean by they operate?
Well, like a vaginal infection in the vagina is not going to look the same as an infection in the bladder. They're going to look completely different because it's two different organs.
I don't understand what you mean by that, considering the bugs that cause them, if they're the same bug in the different places, they're going to cause the same infection. So the treatment would be the same. It might be that you need to have something.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. I mean, I don't know if you test for Gardnerella in the urine in urology at all. So you just don't test for Gardnerella at all?
No, because it's a natural commensal flora in the vagina, and it is like proliferation of that causes bacterial vaginosis, but that's not something that we'd be concerned about generally, because other than a fishy smelling,
it can lead to infertility.
There is a minimal risk of issues in pregnancy, and most people who have a pregnancy concurrent with PB have no issues at all.
I think it's mainly just the fact that I mean, I'm currently still having symptoms of, like, so I don't know, have you seen any of the documents that have been uploaded to the system about this? Because
no, I was focused on trying to figure out.
Oh, I see. Yeah, because I've been formally diagnosed by the guy on that board there, Dr. Paul, with cystitis cystica, which is basically an infection of the bladder lining.
Yes, I think that was more of a this is a possibility rather than it being this is a definitive diagnosis, because one of those things is it's a clinic, like it's like a diagnosis of exclusion when you're looking at things, and there's nothing else that you're going to say that you can
Okay, I mean, I'm currently on antibiotics for that. So obviously every time I take antibiotics, that is lowering my resistance to disease. And every time I take antibiotics, that is interfering with my gut flora. So it's making me less, like, they don't advise against taking antibiotics unless you have a diagnosis, because every time you take them, it means that you're going to have less, they're going to be less likely to work in the future because you build up a resistance to them.
So you're not building up a resistance to them. The bugs that you the bugs that would be being treated by the antibiotics, there is a chance that because you are getting rid of the bugs that are susceptible to that antibiotic, you will then have only the bugs that aren't susceptible to that antibiotic left, which means if they then cause another issue, then they're less likely to respond to the antibiotics that you were initially on.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. I think I understand what you mean. I think it's just I mean, essentially, what I would like, I think, to be really clear. Sorry, what's your name? Who am I speaking with?
Sorry, I'm one of the.
So just to be really clear, I've asked for this referral to urogynecology and why is this beeping? I've asked for this referral to urogynecology.
That's not
nice. I've asked for this referral to urogynecology and gynecology because I've had several clinicians who have seen various. There we go. I think that stopped it.
Having chemotherapy in their bed, taking important calls, getting reports done.
Leave it be for a moment.
Compounded already devastating situation.
No, that's not beeping again.
I've always admitted that I was financially okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
But watching other parents go through it, that's
so just to be really clear, so I've been advised by Nick Parker, who is a scientific director of a private laboratory in the UK, to he's very clearly said to me, you need to ask for a referral to urogynecology or gynecology, in that you need a clinical opinion from a specialist gynecologist to inform the treatment you're receiving from urology, because this is a urogynecological infection. And I've just had an appointment today with a fertility and reproductive health nurse who has also put in writing, these are all in writing, that I've uploaded to the that should have already been shown to you before you consult with me, to be honest, but they have been uploaded to the system, which are all stating that urogynecology or gynecology need to give their clinical opinion.
I came to have a conversation with you because I was coming to tell you about the single thing that I was looking at, which was the bacterial vaginosis swab.
Okay.
I wasn't looking at the rest of the history because at the moment I was looking at other things and looking after.
Oh, no, you've misunderstood me. That's not what I was saying. I know you're not here to look at the history. What I'm trying to explain to you is that all of this case. So you've come here and you've told me that you don't test for Gardnerella or Rabini. Okay, like what am I supposed to do with that information? That's fine. That's absolutely fine. That I know I did. That's absolutely fine. But what do you want me to do? Just how do you expect me to like? What am I supposed to say to that? Like, what do you expect? What are you expecting me to say to that?
That you understand that we're not going to test for it.
I do understand that. I've already expressed that to you because you can't test for something that you don't test for.
Yeah.
But that's not what I've asked for. What I've specifically asked for 3 days ago was for a clinical opinion from a urogynecologist or a gynecologist.
So you're
A
requesting
review or a referral to a gynecologist or a urogynecologist.
Yes.
So that's what I've asked for 3 days ago.
Yes.
So that's the answer I want to know is why is it that they are not coming to speak with me?
That I can't tell you. Referrals take time. That's the only thing. So,
That's fine. That's all I needed to hear. But I don't know why. I don't know what you're expecting me to say. I mean, I've been in here at hospital for 7 days. I have a 3.5-year-old son who is waiting for me to be his mother. I've had to quit work, all my responsibilities for 7 days because of the fact that I have a urogynecological infection. And you come in here, that's fine, to tell me you don't treat, you cannot test for the infection that I have. Now, I don't know. I honestly am baffled. I don't know how you expect me to respond. What do you expect me to say? Like, thank you. That's fantastic. Thank you for giving me that information. I'm thrilled that you cannot test for an infection, even though this is a hospital with a gynecology department. That's absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for coming in here and giving me such helpful information and not suggesting any alternative treatments or any alternative scans or any alternative blood tests or investigations or sonography or swabs. You come in here, you say, well, you can't test for my infection, and then you stare at me, like looking at me, like expecting me to like be the doctor. I'm not the doctor. I'm here for a reason. I'm here because I've had about 7 different clinicians indicate to me that I have a severe urogynecological infection. So unless you come in here and present to me some useful information, like we can't test for Gardnerella, but we can do this scan instead, or we can refer you to this clinician instead, or we can run this test instead, like maybe a blood test or something, or another swab, different type of swab. I mean, I don't know what you're expecting me to say. I've been here for 7 days in a hospital bed. What do you want me to say? Seriously, you're looking at me. What do you want me to say?
the reason I'm listening is because I'm letting you say what you need to say. What I was going to say is that if you wanted to be tested for Gardnerella,
Yeah.
it would be going to a sexual health.
No, I've already sent off the test for infection. I spent £100 and I sent off the test yesterday. That's not the issue here. And this is what I don't understand. I've already explained all of this to Dr. Zan. I've already explained all of this to Dr. Paul. Have you even spoken to either of them? Have they even spoken to you? Because I've already sent off the test. The results will arrive in 7 days. That's not the issue. I'm in an A&E because I have a severe acute urogynecological infection, and I have my ALT levels are 58. And please don't tell me that isn't high, because a lot of the average testing ranges is 35, and mine is 58. That is high, and it was flagged to me by the doctor on Monday, and it came up as red on the system, and I've been here for 7 days, and there's not been one single follow-up investigation about that.
Lydia, this morning you requested a test for Gardnerella. That is the test that I was looking into for you. To see if
Well,
we can
thank you for letting me know you don't do them. I don't know what you want me to say, okay? Great, thank you. Thanks for informing me. That's wonderful. That's wonderful, thank you. I don't know what you want me to say. I mean, I've said to you what I could be happy about, like suggesting some alternative tests, but you're not giving me any of that response. So I don't know what you want me to say. Thank you for informing me of the fact you don't do the test I asked for.
It's a cookbook of sorts, but it's definitely a manifesto for thinking differently and how cooking for one as a woman can become an act of care, defiance, pleasure and self-expression. I started by asking her whether she was reclaiming the word spinster.
Yeah, I mean, reclaiming is definitely part of it, but in that reclamation, I want to be quite careful that we're not shying away from some of the unease and sort of discomfort that people have with the word, because I think that's a really interesting thing to sit with and think about, because it has been such a stigma for such a long time to be a single unmarried woman, and it carries all of these associations. And my use of the word spinster is kind of deliberately provocative in a way, and naming a lot of those uncomfortable associations that we have with it. And also, the word spinster, its origins are in women who, it was an occupation, women who spun wool and often supported themselves, ran their own businesses. And so I really like the term because it exists in its own terms rather than being in relation to a relationship status. There's an absence in single, unattached, uncoupled, all of these. There's something missing, whereas spinster kind of...
They were empowered, weren't they?
Yeah. So
who's a spinster cook?
A spinster cook is someone who is using the kitchen as a way of understanding and thinking about the life that you're building as a single woman. It can be a space of joy, of play, of indulgence, but it can also be a space of defiance, rejection. You can choose not to eat, you can just choose to have a piece of toast for dinner, or you can spend all day preparing a lovely indulgent feast for yourself. But the point is that all of these things are possible because you're living alone and outside of a certain sort of structure and framework.
But you wrote this in the aftermath of a breakup and you now choose to be single. So how has that changed your own approach to food?
So for a long time it was difficult to start with because I've always loved cooking and I've always had a really, good relationship to cooking. And after that particular relationship finished, it was a long-term relationship, we were together for 12 years, I felt kind of uneasy. I had to step back from it for a while because it was very bound up with that particular relationship, with a certain type of domesticity, a certain type of coupled domesticity that I was trying to figure out how I felt about. And also while I was just, when we have a relationship breakup, I was overwhelmed by grief, and obviously feeding yourself, looking after yourself in those circumstances can be really, really tricky. So there was a real period of figuring things out. To go back to the toast, in my first chapter, which is called Vodka and Toast, that moment of realisation of I don't have to make dinner. I can cook and eat on my own terms. And so I'm not negotiate with someone else's tastes or schedules or those kinds of things. There's a real freedom.
Yeah, what happens when you're moving domesticity and it's not about duty, but being a partner?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And your sister comes into the book.
Yes.
And meals you have had with her. Why?
So she was a very important figure in my life when I was a teenager, and I'm young people, and always kind of helped me along and looked after me in various ways. But Hannah was this very specific example in the 90s. It was a certain period in London. She was living in these rented flats and leading a very sort of fun, interesting life, and sort of demonstrated this way of living. Freedom, absolutely. And part of that was through food. It was things like pasta pesto, which were novelties in the 90s, a jarred sort of pasta sauce that we'd had before going out for a few glasses of wine. And there was something about the tastes, the sort of combination of tastes and food and drink that was really kind of introduced me to this way of sort of occupying the world and having a nice time.
And I guess our palate was changing in the UK then as well, quite dramatically. And it's interesting you say pesto. When I first moved to London, very young, I made myself homemade pesto from scratch because why not? And somebody was really surprised by that. They said, "What, just for yourself? How pesto for yourself?" And it made me realise, because actually it's quite an act of love, nourishing yourself.
Yeah, it really is. I was having a conversation at an event last night about this, and someone was saying, well, you would say to someone who's struggling to kind of cook for themselves and struggling to see the point in it. Obviously, not everyone's going to love cooking, that's fine, but it's a way of understanding your own pleasures and what makes you happy.
Yeah.
So if you can figure that out, what flavour combinations you like, and even if that is just some anchovies with a bit of French bread, or a certain type of salad with a particular dressing, that's just such a wonderful thing to be able to give yourself.
Absolutely. Or a Victoria sponge.
Yeah.
Whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I'm very good at punishing myself in other ways, but not through food. That is pleasure. It's such a good book. It really makes you sit and think. And one section is when you talk about your relationship with the dining table. I found really interesting. How do you feel about eating at the table?
I don't like eating at the table, and I fully respect people who do. If I'm having people over for dinner, it's nice to sit around the table. There's a way that it can be a positive and fun experience, but I think I have certain associations with it as a slightly confining space, somewhere that's a kind of workspace in a way, and I talk about this a little bit. It's where, you know, the business, if you're in a couple, you talk about your plans for the weekend and what you're going to do, and families are, you know, discussing what needs to be done in the household, homework. And I landed on these sort of interpretations of the dinner party after I was questioning my own discomfort with the dinner table. I don't set a place for myself.
Don't need to.
I sit on the sofa and watch TV.
Oh, it's a joy.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
absolutely.
TV dinners, the best.
Absolutely. I feel very at peace with that. I don't feel guilty about it.
Listen, you are in good company. No one is shaming you. It's good. I'm going to read these messages coming in. Michelle in Nottingham says, "Oh, give me an effective fluffy omelette and a cold glass of Pinot Grigio. Easy, quick, filling, and less washing up. Eaten at the dining table with a book to hand, also lovely, means a less stressful end of the day." Kim in Warwickshire wrote to say, "I've been single all my life and I embrace my singledom. I have no one else to please but myself. I love it. I have never used a delivery food service and only rarely use ready meals, preferring to batch cook freeze. I cook what I want, when I want, and I presume you can eat when you want as well."
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the nice things. You can follow your hunger and your instincts about food and eat at times that suit you and not other people.
Don't know about you, but that has made me hungry. Kelly Davis there. On Monday's programme, former SNP MP Joanna Cherry speaks to Nuala about what she describes as her tumultuous decade in Scottish politics. And we'll be discussing Minigolf. Did you know it has feminist roots? We'll be hearing all about it as a new playable art exhibition opens, embracing the game's female families. Join Nuala on Monday at 10 a.m. to find out more. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Weekend Woman's Hour was presented by Anita Rani. Producer is Diana Green. On BBC Radio 4.
It's very easy to be impressed by the culture and then Greece by the art and the literature and the philosophy. But you understand the culture a lot better if you dig down to the men and women who made that possible.
Mary Beard and guests explore 5 revealing stories of everyday life in ancient Greece.
It would have been noisy and smelly and dusty.
It is.
Hello. Hello. Hi, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Yes, I am. I'm fine, thank you. I'm okay. I'm just wanting to make sure that my infection is treated because I feel like I am struggling with the symptoms of an infection, and yeah, I just want to make sure that they're going to get treated. So
Sorry, we were just here just to introduce ourselves. My name's Chloe.
Hi.
This is Gigi. We're one of the surgical
Sorry, is your
MPs.
phone on?
It's a
Okay.
surgical-
Not on
it's a-
recording, is
No,
it?
no, no, it's not. It's just leaned up.
Can we just have a look, just to make sure of it?
No, you can't have a look, but I can assure you that I'm not recording. And it is a red flag for me if you're so suspicious. It is a red flag for me if you're so suspicious, actually.
No, because
Why would you not be happy to be recorded?
No,
We're not allowed
it's
to be
against the
recorded.
policy. I'm sorry. We can't talk to you if you're recording.
You're welcome to leave then, actually. Please leave.
If
Because
you're
I don't, if
recording,
someone
then
who's so hesitant about being recording and isn't even you're speaking over me, you're interrupting me, you're not even giving me a chance to do what I was going to do, it's a red flag to me. Why are you so desperate not to be recorded?
It's against the trust policy, madam. You can't do it here. I'm sorry.
That's fine, but there is. I've had hundreds of professionals come in here. I've been in here 7 days, and not one of them have treated me the way you've treated me today.
You can't record it. I'm sorry.
That's absolutely fine. You're welcome to leave.
Yeah.
No, but what
But
I'm
if you are
saying...
No. I'm terminating this meeting. I'm terminating it.
We are not to leave.
No, I don't want to. I don't want to respond to you both. I don't like the way you've spoken to me today.
Let us vote.
No, I don't want to. I'm terminating this meeting. I don't know who you are. I don't know why you've suddenly accused me of recording. You've made false accusations. I'm terminating this meeting. Please go and tell the doctor who is in charge of my care, his name is up there, Dr. Paul, to come and speak with me. I will not tolerate false accusations. Not when it's a matter of safeguarding and not when it's a matter of my own security. I'm in hospital in A&E for 7 days for an acute infection, and I've just been informed falsely that the NHS does not test for the microorganism that is causing the infection. Now, I've just Googled it, and it says that they do test for it if the patient is symptomatic, which I am. Okay, so I'm now putting together an email to send to the doctor I spoke to by video call this morning to explain everything, and I will be CCing in PALS, and I will be CCing in the secretary for the urologist, and I will also potentially be CCing in a clinical negligence lawyer who I spoke to yesterday. The way that you have come in here today and made accusations towards me is very suspicious. Aside from all else, I do not want to speak to anyone else unless they are a specialist gynecologist, a specialist radiologist, or a specialist urogynecologist. Because those at this stage, when I've been in hospital for 7 days, I should not be dealing with nurses anymore. You have not got any information to give me. I need a specialist. I'm waiting for an MRI scan for an acute infection. Do you understand what I'm saying? You're staring at me, but you're not saying anything.
No, I can't say anything because you're not giving me a chance to talk. We
Absolutely.
fully wanted to introduce, but we noticed your camera is on, which I don't agree that we can't.
No, tell me.
Anything.
No, that's incorrect. No, my phone was up like this, and that was all, because that's how I put my phone up like this, because it was just charging. You've made accusations against me today. That's not acceptable. I'm terminating the meeting. I've said it to you 4 times. I want you to leave.
Yeah, but
I've said it to you 4 times. No. If you don't leave, I'll be making a formal complaint. I don't want to engage with either of you anymore. I want you to leave. I want you to leave. I'm terminating this meeting and I want you to go.
I'll get the
Yes, you need to get somebody else in. I've terminated this meeting. Please leave. Thank you. Anyone who's that suspicious about the film is not somebody I want to engage with. Absolutely not. Speaking to me like that, who do they think they are? They honestly think I'm going to accept being spoken to like that when I've been waiting for 7 days. I didn't like the tone, I didn't like how it made me feel, and I'm not going to engage with nurses anymore when I need specialists.
Are just so long. So I think we're going to have to really take it day by day.
3 senior Ukrainian officials, including President Zelensky's chief of staff, say they are returning awards bestowed by Poland. It's the latest development in a diplomatic row between the 2 countries. President Zelensky massacres against Polish citizens in the Second World War. The Governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey, has spoken of the difficulties of tracking down the source of fake AI images showing him and the leader of Reform UK, Nigel Farage, apparently fighting. The adverts have been seen repeatedly on social media platforms in recent weeks. Mr. Bailey told the BBC's Test Match Special that it was a cryptocurrency scam, but it was very difficult to find those behind it.
The really frustrating thing we're finding is we can't trace the source of it. They cover their tracks enormously well. So they appear often as ads on YouTube, and they don't get saved. So you've got to literally almost sort of capture them at the moment, and then even then you've got to trace the source.
Andrew Bailey speaking there.
Thank you. It's 5:05 this PM with me, Joe Pike. At about 5:15 yesterday evening, on the outskirts of Bedford, 2 trains on their way to London collided. People flew from their seats, said one passenger on board. As we heard in the news, 1 person is dead, 9 are in a critical condition in hospital, many more were seriously injured. Lucy Dorsey, the Chief Constable of British Transport Police, spoke at the crash site earlier.
There will, of course, be a lot of questions as to what exactly happened last night. I would really like to reassure everyone that specialist investigators from British Transport Police are working with colleagues at the Rail Accident Investigation Branch to gather the facts and determine what has happened. They are extremely experienced, and I would ask that we all refrain from speculation.
Live to Bedford and our BBC correspondent, Joe Black. Joe, what more have the authorities been saying today? Okay, I think we have lost Joe back. We'll try and come back to her later in the programme with more on that train crash in Bedford. now. Keir Starmer is spending the weekend with his wife at Chequers, his official country residence, and he's pondering his political mortality. Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper is just the latest cabinet minister to tell him, in private at least, it's time to go. But will he listen, and do Labour MPs agree on what happens next? Well, John McDonnell is one of them. He served as Shadow Chancellor under Jeremy Corbyn. Thank you for joining us, Mr. McDonnell. Mr. McDonnell, what's your dream scenario of what happens in the next 48 hours?
Well, I'm trying to avoid a nightmare. That's the most important thing. It looks as though, as Charlie Faulkner, Lord Faulkner said this morning, Keir has lost all authority, both I think within the Parliamentary Labour Party, but also within his own cabinet. So I think if there's going to be a change of leadership, we need to do that as soon as possible, but also with a bit of dignity as well, a proper agreement on the transitional phase, and allowing Keir to step down with that dignity, and possibly allowing Keir to identify a couple of pieces of policy that he'd like to complete before he goes. I'll give one example, is the Hillsborough legislation, which he's been associated with and supporting. So I just think we should do this properly now and just get on with it.
Do you want a contest or a coronation?
I don't think contest is realistic at the moment. From the left.
But you believe in party democracy, Mr.
Let me finish. Yeah, let me finish. I do. Let me finish the sentence though. I'm a member of the Socialist Campaign Group, and the reality is we wouldn't be able to secure 80 nominations to get a candidate on the ballot paper. I don't believe that West Streeting either could go on the ballot paper, or even if he could, I don't think he's got the support of the membership. And I think his challenges is more about self-promotion and trying to negotiate a position in the new cabinet. So I think that's the reality, that's the real politics of this. So let's just get on with it now, but do it in as good a way as we possibly can, and one which is not brutal as some of what we've seen in the other parties. Let's be comradely in the Labour Party tradition.
So you don't want a battle of ideas. You don't think that Andy Burnham, seemingly the leading contender, needs some scrutiny?
Well, the battle of ideas will come once he becomes leader. There'll be a proper debate, because one of the things that Andy has mentioned, to give him his credit, he wants a more pluralistic Labour Party. He wants to respect the Labour tradition of the broad church, left, right and centre. And I think if he can do that, it will open up a proper debate, and it will be about policies, and it'll be about the direction of the government. And I welcome that, because always, when you get to a mid-term of the government, it's always that. The mid-term is when you're halfway through your manifesto and you're looking for fresh ideas and how you freshen the government up. And I think that's what Andy Burnham could do. So I'm looking forward to that debate discussion. I certainly won't get everything I want. Of course I won't, but I think there will be this pluralistic approach where we'll be able to compromise again, which we haven't had over the last couple of years.
You've said you now want to see a, quote, a radical policy programme. Where's the evidence, do you think, that Mr. Burnham, at least, has been radical?
He has been raising, and interestingly enough, others have been raising in the discussion over the last few weeks, issues around, well, the need to redistribution of wealth and income in our community, because we've got such grotesque levels of inequality. So people are now talking about wealth taxes, which they didn't do in the past. We're now looking at a greater role for public ownership, and water is the obvious one, as Thames Water is about to collapse. And there's other aspects of making sure that our employment rights programme is fully implemented. So again, what's interesting is that people who have not engaged in that sort of debate, and certainly for the last couple of years, are now opening up that debate around those issues. So I think there's real potential. But as I say, in any debate like that, it's as a tradition as in the past, I won't get everything I want, but others will get some, and we'll have a proper compromise, and I think we'll steady the ship of government.
What about your former colleague, Jeremy Corbyn? Do you think Mr. Burnham, if he gets the job, should welcome Jeremy Corbyn back into the Labour Party?
I hope he could. Obviously, that's something that can be considered over time. I hope, for example, he restores the whip to Diane Abbott, which should never have been taken away. But those sorts of, as I say, if there's a commitment to a pluralistic party and a broad church, you would ensure that you have the whole breadth of what is our tradition within that party, and in that way we're strengthened, because whatever people think about Jeremy Corbyn himself, he has a large amount of support in the community, particularly amongst young people. And we've demonstrated, what Andy Burnham demonstrated in the by-election, he was able to unite, even across parties, progressive support for his positioning. And as a result of that, defeat what is the major threat to our country, which is the potential of a reform government.
Okay, John McDonnell, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see what happens in British politics in the next couple of days, I'm sure. Let's now return to the main story, our top story today, that train crash in Bedford yesterday evening. Let's try and go back to Joe Black, our correspondent in Bedford. Joe, what more have the authorities been telling you today?
Hi Joe, yeah, you join us just south of Bedford. We're just at the scene of where this collision took place yesterday around tea time. We're just near a bridge which is cordoned off, which is being manned by some police officers, and around 100, 150 metres just down the track that I can see, the two trains are still in situ after that collision yesterday. As you were just pointing out there, we did get an update from some of the authorities earlier on today. They gave us an update from a cordon further away from where I'm talking to you now. They were talking about the amount of people that have been injured in this incident. Of course, we know the sad news about one of the train drivers who has lost his life, but they also talked about how 80 people were taken to hospital. 28 of those people are still being treated, and 9 are in a critical condition. So that's the update we got on the people who went to hospital and still remain in hospital today. They also talked about the emergency response, just how big that was to what the responders were dealing with. They talked about there being 20 fire engines, there were 20 ambulances, 6 air ambulances, 70 fire officers. There was no fire, they were quite keen to point out, but those fire officers were obviously involved also in that effort. And they also praised local people who showed kindness to the passengers, of course, who obviously you've seen on the news today the shock and the chaos on the trains yesterday, people disorientated, getting off the train, not knowing what had happened or where they were. So they talked also about local people and how they showed kindness to those people who've been wrapped up in all of this yesterday.
And is there any more clarity on what might have caused this crash?
Not at the moment. Of course, the rail investigators are now working at pace. They've been here all day. We've seen lots of people in high visibility jackets.
Can I just speak to you for a second about something? So basically, I've just had a nurse come in.
Yeah. Told that the investigation is
This one,
We've also been told
which one?
that the
grey one, this one.
process will be complex.
Joe Black, live.
It's been going on for hours.
Joining us on PM.
Oh, it's stopped.
So
I was just kind of in my own world doing my own thing, and then suddenly a nurse kind of came in. I hadn't met her before. She's not seen any of my notes. I don't know who she is. She's not with a doctor. She's not with a chaperone. She comes in and she just says to me, I've requested a test for Gardnerella because I've been advised by Nick Parkinson, the scientific director at Digital Microbiologies, the Victoria from a women's health company, and another clinician, that it would be very advisable to ask for a referral to urogynecology in the first instance until that goes through. In fact, I've spoken to Dr. Kazan about this, to Dr. Paul about this, and then to a blonde doctor who came in earlier about this. And we all agreed that I would be tested for Gardnerella, because that is what multiple tests have said, that Gardnerella is causing the infection, which is causing the spillover into my bladder, which is causing the inflammation. So this nurse came in, I don't know who she was, she just said to me, unfortunately we don't test for Gardnerella on the NHS. And then she stares at me and I think, so I think to myself, that's nonsense, because this is a hospital, this is a common bacteria. So that's the first thing. And then I say to her, but do you realise that there are I've had this infection for 2 years, and there are severe consequences such as infertility. If this infection isn't treated, it could lead to me becoming infertile in the future. And she says, oh, well, that's only in a small amount of cases. It's not. It can lead to serious consequences. If it's like any infection can become pelvic inflammatory disease, can spread to your urothelium if it isn't treated. So that's the second thing. So I've just Googled, does the NHS test for Gardnerella vaginalis, which is what I've asked for the test for, and which Nick Parkinson has advised I need treatment for, and which I was last tested for in March, but which I haven't been retested for since. And this is what it says. The NHS does test for Gardnerella vaginalis as a primary cause of bacterial vaginosis. However, they generally do not test for it as a standalone STI screening. I'm not asking for that. I don't need an STI screening. And then it says, because Gardnerella is a bacterium naturally found in vaginal flora. That's fine, I understand that. But it says here, testing is only done if you have symptoms. So Gardnerella is in the vaginal flora, but if it's at levels of 180,000 colony-forming units per milliliter, which mine were in March, that is a sign of an acute infection. And in light of the fact that I am symptomatic, hence why I've been in hospital for 7 days, and I'm having incontinence, pain, hesitancy, an intermittent stream, and continuous issues with my urethra, I've requested this test. And what concerns me is the fact that this shouldn't be a test that is arranged by urology, and it doesn't surprise me that urology wouldn't test for this, because this is not a urological bacteria, it's gynecology. And I just don't know. I understand it's a Saturday, I understand it's the weekend, and I understand that the referrals take time, but I don't really understand. I've been to many A&E departments in my lifetime. Usually there is an on-site gynecologist or an on-site urogynecologist to give their clinical opinion. And I have been here since Monday for urogynecological issues that are not just urological. So I'm just a bit flummoxed. I have sent an email about this because I am concerned about why I'm being told that they don't test for it in this trust. That's nonsense. It's a very common bacteria. No, they wouldn't test for it in urology, but they would in urogynecology. So what's happening with that referral? Where is the on-site urogynecologist?
I don't know what the nurse spoke to you about, but I thought she mentioned something about the referral.
They haven't really. They've just said referrals take time, which I understand, but to be honest, I'd much rather just not be given news like that, because honestly, I cannot control how I feel emotionally. It just stresses me out. For me to have been asking for this test, and then for somebody to just come in and tell me that the hospital doesn't test for it, and then I literally Google it, and on the NHS website it says they do test for it, and I know I've had tests for it before on the NHS. Yes, they may have to consult a specialist to get the test, but they can run any test here. As long as they have the swab kit, they can request for the lab to test for anything. You know, and if there's strong indications that this is what's causing my symptoms, I just don't understand.
Do you want me to tell one of the doctors to come speak with you?
Yes, please, because I don't understand it. I just don't know what I'm supposed to say to that. You know, I'd rather just not have been given the news, or for them to have waited for gynecology to tell me, because if the nurse had come over and said, okay, we don't test for Gardnerella, but here's what's going to happen instead, or don't worry though, we are still waiting for gynecology, I'm sure they'll have an alternative test to do, I'd understand. But it was just this bad news given to me about a really, really difficult issue that I've just had to pay. I've just spoken to a private, fertility and reproductive specialist this morning, who has confirmed to me that if these infections aren't treated, they can get worse. So I just didn't know how to respond, to be honest, and I just said, okay, thanks for letting me know, that's great, thanks for telling me. And I'm left thank you, I don't know what you want me to say to that, but okay. Yeah, thank you, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
And they see the support of Trump as a consolidation of the support that Washington has always given to Colombia. But on the other hand, I think there's a lot of people on the center-left who really are not happy to see such a direct intervention from the U.S. They think Colombian politics should be decided by Colombians alone, who might be actually supporting Cepeda just to make sure that we don't have a president that is so aligned with President Trump.
What do you think Donald Trump is trying to achieve here? Is this part of his wider strategy, trying to align much of Latin America in the sort of mirror image of his MAGA movement?
Absolutely. This is something that Trump has been very clear for the last 2 years of his mandate, that he wants to have a Western hemisphere that is very much online with what he is proposing in terms of militarization and fight against drugs and migration. And he has created what he has called the Shield of the Americas, which is a group of presidents that are sort of aligned with his thinking Obviously, Colombia, being one of the biggest drug producers and drug traffickers, is an essential part of that equation. So I think he sees if Colombia goes to the right, he only would really have two countries in Latin America, Mexico and Brazil, that would be on the left.
Renata Segura there from the International Crisis Group. It is 5:21. Stockton is the town that former Tory Cabinet Minister James Cleverly was accused of insulting in Parliament. Do you remember that with a choice word? He said his comment.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
That's
That's
a
really
market
kind.
town on
Thank
the
you.
banks of the River Tees has undergone a radical makeover to boost its reputation, including by demolishing a third of its high street. Could this be a blueprint for regeneration elsewhere? Emma Simpson has been to find out.
A group of school kids are making the most of a huge new play area with timber towers, slides and swings. They're amongst the first visitors to this new urban park.
It's just gigantic and there's so much to do, so you don't really know what to do because there's so much.
I think my favourite thing is probably the big slide because it's really fun and entertaining and there's lots of things to do.
What's different here is that for decades, this used to be a shopping centre, a multi-storey car park and a hotel. The council bought all of it to knock it down, and the site's been completely transformed as an open-air amphitheatre, community spaces, lots of lovely planting and trees. It's an area about 3 times the size of Trafalgar Square, linking the town directly to the River Tees.
I love these big iron archways. Tell me about that.
They're great, and this is a nod to our heritage in Stockton High Street.
Lisa Evans is the leader of Stockton Borough Council. She told me doing nothing wasn't an option.
Up and down the country, national retailers are not coming to towns like Stockton, and it was taking the bull by the horns, if you like, and thinking, let's be ambitious for our town and its people. Let's do something radical, and that's what you see here today.
And you're hoping this in time will generate footfall and there will be a wider economic benefit. Is that it?
Absolutely. We've already seen businesses coming into town because of the park, and I'm sure we'll get a huge amount of people wanting to come to visit Stockton, and we'll be spending their hard-earned money in Stockton.
Across the street at the Remember Me, the Order Clear Church is brewing hot drinks and praying this scheme is a success.
For me, this is like make or break now. So if I'm going to give a couple more years, and if it's not beneficial for us, I can't keep going.
This is one of the boldest plans in the country for town centre regeneration. Usually it's about converting empty shops into housing, offices or even gyms. Stockton ripped off the rule book, but it hasn't come cheap. It cost £41.5 million to get all of this done with the help of some government funding, and that doesn't include the cost of buying up all the property. So, will it pay off?
Retail and shopping is not the future of town and city centres up and down the
Can I
country.
have
Matthew Hopkinson has been
could I have
studying
coffee,
high
please?
streets for
Yeah, that'd be
decades
great,
and his
thank
company
you.
Adobe gives
Just milk,
advice on
please.
how to
Yeah,
improve them. Could this be a blueprint for other struggling towns?
I think it could be a blueprint in terms of the local authority taking control of its destiny and doing something which would otherwise not be done, and certainly not by the private sector.
So what's the jeopardy here?
I think the jeopardy is that you build something that becomes a white elephant and it becomes full of antisocial behaviour, they can't afford to maintain it, the plants all die, and people just see it as an eyesore.
It's certainly been controversial among residents.
It would just be a complete waste of money. So much regeneration is needed around here, and I think that was the last thing that should have been done. It's absolutely amazing what they've done. Amazing, and it will look wonderful.
They're not shops either. This used to be shops, both sides, market down the middle.
It's taken years for Stockton to get this far, and it'll be more years before the success of this scheme can be fully measured. There's a lot riding on it.
Emma Simpson there. Now, you might not have heard of the US TV director James Burrows, who's died at the age of 85, but you'll know the shows he helped create. Cheers, Frasier, Friends, and The Big Bang Theory. Dubbed the Steven Spielberg of sitcoms, he never achieved the fame of his cinematic equivalents, but entertainment critic Caroline Frost is one of James Burrows' admirers. Why was he so significant?
I think I'm not going to say single-handedly, but certainly was one of the pioneers of that glorious TV sitcom age that we now look back on so fondly, and was responsible for some of the biggest shows that we love to this day. So he directed Taxi, Friends, Big Bang Theory, and he of course was a co-creator of that great behemoth Cheers, which was a massive show that really we don't really get these days in this very fragmented TV audience age.
And those styles of TV comedy are so different from what we see produced today. Far more old school. We're talking about thick sets, multiple cameras, studio audiences.
They went on for a very long time. So you had the filming, which was 3 or 4 cameras all recording the same scene in a studio, which meant that the actors could be almost larger than life because the cameras were quite far away. And then when you had the live audience in the studio, you had the laugh track, and of course they were very fixed sets, normally those sitcoms.
And are there any highlights, key scenes that pop out to you?
When you look at an ensemble like the stars of Friends, so much of the humour comes from what we already know about them. So for example, that fateful day when Ross discovers that his best friend Chandler has been having a romance with his sister.
I thought you were my best friend. This is my sister. My best friend and my sister. I cannot believe this.
Look, we're not just messing around. I love her.
My best friend.
And he's the last to know. We're so invested in the outcome of that discovery that they take us with them. James Burrows always said that the sweet spot was when performance met script, met character, and I think you see that in somebody like Norm in Cheers.
Afternoon, everybody. How you doing, Norm? What do you know? Not enough.
What happened to them? Did they just become too expensive or a bit tired?
The laughter track being done away with is probably deeply significant, and so there's been this evolution. I would cite in this country probably Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant with The Office. We don't have that laughter track encouraging us to laugh or telling us when to laugh, and so we're a bit more of a sophisticated viewer. We get the ironies, we get the nuances. It's more filmic in a way.
That transition has taken place, and yet the data seems to suggest that audiences are still consuming the old sitcoms in pretty large numbers.
I think that there is a community that was built through these people. I mean, James Burrows in particular, he said he liked to create families, and all of those shows that I've discussed, Taxi, The Big Bang Theory, particularly Friends, they are self-made families. And I think when we have this fractured, very siloed cultural environment that we all inhabit now, where we're watching TV on our phones, we're cut off from the world, and instead we're entering into these fictional worlds where people are in fact still very much tied together. I think it's a nostalgia, and there's it's comforting.
So, by way of update, I was just informed by a nurse that they do not test for Gardnerella at the NHS, at this trust, and I've googled it, and it says the NHS does test for Gardnerella, but it won't as a standard STI testing because Gardnerella naturally exists in the flora. However, if you're symptomatic, they will test for it. So I just don't think they're quite understanding the link between, I don't think they quite understand the notion of urogynecology, because for men, a urological issue wouldn't affect their reproductive health because the urethra is much longer, but for women we have a different anatomy, so anything that's happening gynecologically will spill over into the urological symptoms. So I've tried to explain that, but it's kind of like difficult to get that across without speaking to a specialist uro or gynecologist, which I've asked for a referral for, but I don't expect that to go through over the weekend, to be honest. So I don't even know why I'm pushing for that at the weekend, because it's not going to happen at the weekend. It would happen on Monday. So I think until Monday it's just buffers, it's just people coming in to like talk to me basically, which I'm forgetting that part, but yeah, I just need to wait to speak to a specialist urogynecologist really, or get the MRI, and until that point it's like there's not really anything else that the nurses can do. So anyway, that's the update. Still waiting for the MRI. It won't happen, nothing will happen at the weekend, so I just have to sit tight until Monday basically. That's it really. They won't have any specialists in at the weekend. All the specialists are probably with their families at the weekend. So, in the hospital.
About this country is that anybody can come here. Anyone from anywhere can do anything. That's the idea of America. That central idea of becoming an American that puts you on exactly the same level field in terms of citizenship and belonging as anyone else is truly unique.
Also, just for the record, I'm currently on, again, just for the record, I'm currently on penicillinal, which is an antibiotic, plus codeine, which has side effects. Ibuprofen has side effects, and antihistamines have side effects. Methenamine hyperate has side effects. So I'm on a lot of different drugs that all have side effects, and especially with the penicillin, I did have an adverse reaction to that. So I'm not trying to say I shouldn't have been put back on it if it's treating the infection. I'm just saying my body is currently having an adverse reaction to it, but it's just being tempered by the antihistamines. But I am feeling very hot. It is very hot in here. I have been here for a long time, so I'm only human, and like, however much I'd love to be an oasis of calm, I want to get out of here as much as they want me out of here. So, I'm just doing my best, to be honest.
I think it's actually a failing of the environmental movement that it's become very ideological, very focused on just one aspect of environmentalism, which is
I should have probably just said, don't test Garden. I should have said, okay, no problem, I'll just talk to the urogynecologist on Monday. That's what I should have said. I didn't know who they were. I thought maybe they were the gynecologist. And also I've had a lot of medical trauma. You know, I've had various medical experiences, and I've been dealing with these symptoms for years. So it's kind of like, for me, no news is good news, and then bad news, which is given to me as news, is just kind of not really what I want to hear.
There are obviously some echoes in the policy debate that's being had in the
Like
UK.
I
Let's
say,
get
we'll
to
just wait till
policy
Monday, so I'm
first
sure
while, though. What I
everyone will
want
be
to
back in the
understand to
hospital.
start with
Till
is
then,
whether
just sit
you
tight.
accept on a political journey that there is a big difference in the Steve Hilton running as the Trump-backed candidate in California with the David Cameron advisor, or in reality do you think that's a superficial view? That you're still you always were, you always will be.
I do actually think it's a bit superficialist, but I would totally accept that there's been a personal and professional journey, which has been
a simple swab
great
test.
in the sense of
Put in a request
giving
to the
me
lab, but that's what they need
opportunities
to
I never
test
would have
for.
dreamed of back in the UK.
I think that what they mean is they don't test for it under microscopy.
Here in California, and a whole new career in the media, which I
They
never
could
would
just
have
request it
expected.
in the lab.
All those things definitely represent a journey.
What jam? With your rice pudding?
So I'm not complaining, I'm just going to wait till Monday for the specialist to be back in the hospital.
Okay.
And
Having jam in the rice
whether
pudding,
the
darling.
US or the UK needed to shift.
The thing that comes to mind is a moment, it really was a very specific moment in 2015, and I just published a book in the UK, you probably talked about it at the time, More Human, Designing a World Where People Come First, and the argument in the book was that everything becomes too big and bureaucratic, centralized and distant to the human scale, decentralized power and so on. During 2015, I was working on updating the UK version with American case studies and statistics and so on. And at that point, I think in the chapter on inequality or poverty, whatever, I came across this chart of data which really struck me. And it's become quite well known now, but it plotted on the chart the earnings after inflation of the majority of American workers. I think the term is non-managerial, non-supervisory workers. In fact, 80% of the workers, their earnings plotted on the chart, and basically it showed that after inflation, those earnings have been flat, like totally flat, since 1974. So you've had decades of wildly differing economic policy. You know, left, right, globalization, and so on.
Yeah.
And yet at the end of all of that, the economic
Hello.
position of most people was flat.
Oh, thank
Whereas,
you.
on the same chart, they plotted the earnings of the top 20% and corporate earnings, and they went up like a hockey stick. And to me, that captures something that really was the underlying driver of what I came to call positive populism, which is something's not working here, and the economic policies that have been pursued on an ideological basis by both sides are not delivering for most regular people.
So that took you on a journey to backing Brexit in the UK and to backing Donald
It
Trump.
doesn't make sense that an infection as common as Gardnerella isn't tested for on the NHS, because it's not an obscure infection to have. It's very common, as is a lower urinary tract infection. It's very common, so there definitely would be the test on the NHS. It's not like it's a tropical disease that I caught when I was in Malaysia or in China. You know, it's a common. These both should be really easy to treat, and it's just that's why it's. If I can't monitor the infection and can't get the retest to check if it's getting better, that's just. And every single time I want to retest for something as common as BV, I've literally spent £100 on the test and sending it off. And then the Dr. Kazan said, well, don't spend all that money on these tests. It's like, what am I supposed to do? If the NHS won't test for them, where else am I supposed to go to get the test but a private provider? And then the test results come back and they say, well, we can't take those seriously because they're not from an NHS laboratory. I'm like, but you've said you can't test for it on the NHS. Oh my God, that's really difficult.
To become California government. You said it all began with freedom. What do you mean? So the image that then follows that.
Oh, it's you. Oh my God, hi. Sorry, I was just speaking to my mum. Let me just send the thing. Sorry, I was just having a video call with my mum.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Michelle. I'm the site manager for Hire for St James's. The NMP just called me to say that you were a little bit upset with your interjection and your conversation, so I've just called to just have a little chat and see.
Yeah, I requested to speak to you a few days ago, so I'm glad you've come to speak to me. Yeah. Are you the ward manager?
No,
you're the site manager.
manager.
Oh, I thought I requested to speak to the ward manager. Yeah. It's basically just to give you an overview. I've been here since Monday as an inpatient. I've had several clinicians say that they think I've got a bladder and urothelial infection and a gynecological infection, and they've said to me that, and this is the scientific director who said this, that the gynecological infection is spilling over into the urological system. So I've just been, all of the indications are that the reason I have this gynecological infection, which is the root cause of why I'm in hospital, is because of a species called Gardnerella. Gardnerella causes BV, which is a very common infection in the same way that a lower urinary tract infection is. So these shouldn't be difficult to treat. But the problem is that I've been told just now that they don't test for Gardnerella in this trust. And then I've Googled it on the NHS website and it says, correct, they won't routinely test for Gardnerella as part of an STI screening because it naturally occurs in the gut flora. But if you're experiencing symptoms, which I am because that's why I'm here, symptoms of hesitancy, of intermittent stream with my urological system, then they will test for it because you're symptomatic. So, and I was just explaining to my mum, from my perspective, it's really difficult at this stage because I've spent nearly £1,000 trying to get this resolved. And I understand they're saying they don't test for Gardnerella here at the trust. So what I've done is I've just spent £100 and I've sent off a test yesterday to get the extensive gynecological swab done with a private laboratory. I spent £95 on that test, £250 on the one before that, £250 on the one before that, £100 on the one before that. All of them are alluding to the same issue, which is a gynecological infection. So from my perspective, I don't know what to do because I'm going to the private providers, I'm doing everything I have to do. I'm bringing in the tests. I've uploaded 6 documents to the system. All of the doctors here have seen them, but all the private providers are telling me it has to be the NHS to treat you. It has to be the consultant to treat you. I'm currently under urology here as an outpatient. I'm also under urogynecology and gynecology. So from my perspective, what I'm not understanding is that Dr. Paul, the consultant, whose name is up there, said 3 days ago that he was going to request for either on-site gynecologist, similar to you, on-site clinical site manager. He was going to request for an on-site gynecologist or an on-site urogynecologist to give their clinical opinion, to review the notes and give their clinical opinion. That hasn't happened. And then today I've been told that I haven't been given information about whether I'm having the MRI, whether radiology have accepted the MRI. And then I've just been, so I'm sort of waiting. It's a lot of time. I have a 3.5-year-old son. I have responsibilities of him. And then a nurse comes in, quite a junior nurse comes in and tells me they don't test for Gardnerella. And from my perspective, having dealt with these symptoms in my medical records for 2 years, and then having led to the point, I won't go into my symptoms because they're quite embarrassing to talk about, but I wouldn't be here. I'd rather be literally anywhere else than in a hospital. I have a 3.5-year-old son. I would rather be being a mother to him or in the gym or shopping than I would in a hospital. But I'm here because I have to be here, because I know that at the moment the painkillers are great, but they are masking the fact that I do have an infection. So from my perspective, and I understand it's the weekend, so I don't think any of the specialists will be in, and I think that's part of the problem. But it's just kind of difficult because one source is saying they do test for this bacteria, and then the nurse is saying they don't test for it. And I also do know that I have had a test for it before on the NHS, so I know that the NHS do test for it. And also, I don't think they have the kits here, because this is urology. They have the urethral kits testing, but they don't have the gynecological kits. That would be gynecology. So I just, honestly, it was more a case of being absolutely baffled about how to respond.
Let me, if it's all right with you, have a look at your notes.
Yeah, that's
see who's in over the weekend from a gynae perspective, and see if they can talk to each other.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that okay?
It's fine, because it is quite difficult to talk about gynecological issues. There is a stigma around it, and I do understand that.
Yeah, I'll be honest, my background's head sprains, so I don't know about these tests, but what I can do is I can have a look to see if there's been those conversations, if there's anything on your records to say that this MRI scan's been requested or it's been vetted. If they request it, then the specialists have to vet it, go through, and basically it's on a clinical need, so whoever's the most clinical gets it first.
Yes, absolutely.
So I can direct with that.
Okay.
And then I'm in tomorrow as well, so I can come up and just give you a bit of an update.
That would be great, because I had a ultrasound, which I also already had in January. But the problem with an ultrasound is that according to clinical guidance I read after having seen Dr. Maloney on Harley Street privately, £275 a couple of months ago, the clinical guidance was that ultrasounds are not recommended for cases of severe urinary tract infections, bladder infections. They're just not recommended. They have a 33% sensitivity to pick up on what's causing the infection. B, it's also not recommended, especially for those who are suffering from obesity, who have a BMI above 30. My BMI is 31.5. I weighed here on Monday 94 kilograms, so that means it would have been even less sensitive to see what was causing it. So that's why I requested for the I've written down the phrase, the specific type of just 1 second. It's a specific type of MRI, which is the next step down for a multiparametric MRI, which is the next step down to a cystoscopy, which I can't have because doing the cystoscopies for people who already have an acute bladder infection causes the bacteria to spread, and it can cause a worsening of the pain. And I'm immunocompromised, so I have to be really, really careful. I pick up infections like that, I really do. And then also on Monday I did some blood tests here, and my ALT levels, liver function test, within the liver function test, my ALT levels were 58 and they came up as red on the system. So I've also asked at least one of the clinicians about if there will be any follow-up testing for that. And I haven't had any response. And the problem is, like, there's a lot, there is a lot that's indicated as being abnormal: high epithelial cells, high ALT, white blood cells, lots of abnormalities. And I'm not the doctor, so I'm like, and I'm trying to and it's quite a high turnover, so I'm trying to remember to raise everything whilst not coming across as like a know-it-all, but also whilst knowing my body and knowing the symptoms I'm experiencing, being quite highly educated, because I am quite highly educated, and my brother works for the NHS. So it's a lot to remember, and I can't always remember to say everything.
Stressful when you've got other factors, you've got, home as well,
Exactly. It is quite stressful. So thank you for coming to speak with me, Michelle. I really appreciate it.
I'll have a nosy at your notes and see what we can do.
Thank you.
I'll be honest, I don't think they'll have those conversations over the weekend with the specialists.
I know.
I don't want to give you any false hope and lie to you, but I will have a look, and we can definitely. I can send an email to the ward manager, and if she's not in on Monday, I can certainly CC their name.
Thank you. That would be great. Just to see if they're in progress, the radiology and the gynecology, if they're in progress, the referrals. At least if they're on the system, so that I know that they've been sent through, kind of thing. Yeah, that was. Thank you for speaking to me anyway. I really appreciate it. I hope you'll see something on the system and that will kind of make you understand what I'm trying to explain. Yeah.
Yeah, it's frustrating anyway.
I know it's the weekend though, so things are a bit slower at the weekend. There's a lot of the clinicians aren't in the hospital, so I am aware of that. It's just with my memory problems, sometimes I just forget momentarily, and if I'm distracted as well, I'm kind of like I haven't had time to. When I'm like sitting here eating my dinner and you come and speak to me, if you were to give me some big news about something medical, I'd be like, fine, because I'm eating my dinner and I'm not like typing or watching something or listening to something or doing something. But if I'm distracted, I'm sort of maybe focusing on whatever it is I'm emailing about and not fully listening to what they're telling me. So I'm not like 100% thinking through like the what I should say and stuff. So that's why I just thought of asked to speak to someone else. Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
get
write
ready
down questions.
for Monday for ward round. Write
Yeah,
it down.
yeah, that's a really good idea. I will write. I was actually going to do that. Yeah.
Lots of patients do write it down.
Yeah.
I've done that in the past.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you just go blank when they come, don't you?
You do, yeah. Because I just said to the nurse, and Betty, you know, then she's a nurse, she's not a radiologist, but I just said to her, okay, that's fine, like you don't test for Gardnerella, I understand. Is there any other alternative that they could maybe do to check for signs of a gynecological infection, even if it's not to check for the specific bacteria, like for example, a transvaginal ultrasound scan, or to be honest, I can't really think of anything else, or an MRI or a CT, you know, to check for that kind of infection. To be honest, a general pelvic MRI would show, that's what I needed, was just show wherever is infected, as opposed to it just being a localized area.
Yeah.
But I know that these things take time, and I know that you know, I know these things take time, and I'm absolutely happy to wait, you know, for as long as it takes. I really am, and I am grateful to even have a bed, you know, and to be receiving medical care, and you know, I understand that you're dealing with like life-threatening situations and dealing with cancer patients.
You're in volunteer.
Yeah, I just want to really emphasise, I do understand that, and I'm not trying to say that, I mean, I'm happy to wait for as long as it takes. It's just, I really do just want to get these issues resolved so that I don't have to keep coming back to A&E over and over again, and I can just kind of then focus on my health overall, but not an acute infection, you know, because that is kind of like a health crisis. I just want to not. I know I'm overweight, and that's something I've never come to A&E for. But if it's an acute infection that's affecting my pelvic area, and also the muscles are affected, you know, it really impacts my daily life, and it impacts my ability to sleep and work and parent and all of this stuff, and that's why I'm here. So
yeah, okay. I'll speak to the NMPs and just say that I've spoken to you. The NMPs contacted me as well to say that they thought that you were maybe filming. I said, well, it's not against law to film anything. You have to get consent.
Absolutely,
from
yeah.
nurses.
No,
so if you do want to film a conversation, just get consent first.
Yeah, of course.
But obviously, no patients, no patients.
No, 100%. I completely understand that. I would never film anyone's face or like card or name or anything like that. But I understand it's to get consent. Yeah, no, 100%. It's just because like because I'm on my own. So for example, Maureen next door, she's got a catheter and she's got all her wounds on her legs, bless her, I hope they're getting managed. But she has her husband coming in here to just give her that he's only here for half an hour, but it's just that moral support, a bit of advocacy, he'll talk to the staff. I don't have anyone. You know, I had my mum come in once and she had to go and look after her husband. So because I'm self-advocating, it is exhausting. I'm getting very limited sleep. I am suffering from an acute infection and many other comorbidities, and I'm advocating always for myself. So sometimes there are nurses who come in who haven't reviewed my notes, who might misunderstand me, cultural differences, communication differences, and I do not want anything but to be professional, and for them to be professional and to like just communicate clearly and get this infection resolved. But sometimes I get tired. I can feel I'm waning. I'm getting exhausted. I was just telling my mum I'm on antihistamines, piperacillin, which is a heavy-duty antibiotic. The piperacillin I had an adverse reaction to, but they're masking it with the antihistamine. So currently my body is having an adverse reaction, but they're tempering the efficacy of it in treating the infection with the reactions. That's why they're keeping me on it. And then I have IBS, so the codeine and the ibuprofen will be causing me side effects with that. And I'm also on methenamine hypurate, which is to sterilize my bladder, which has side effects. So if you can imagine, I'm dealing with like all the side effects physically and a new environment, listening to these patients in a lot of distress. I'm here on my own trying to self-advocate, and sometimes I don't think that maybe the nurses realise like my family situation as well, and everything I've gone through, all the trauma I've gone through, really difficult trauma, and then they come in and I'm tired and maybe not fully on the pulse, and they misinterpret that as me being dismissive, when actually it's not. It's just I'm just exhausted from self-advocating, and I wish I had the father of my child here with me, or my brother here with me, or my father here with me, or my mother here with me, or a friend here with me, one of the thousands of people who've known me in my 31 years of life, and there's nobody here. So I'm truly doing the best I can, but it is really helpful, especially because this is very much a woman's health problem. It's really helpful, Michelle, as a woman, that you've kind of come and agreeing to slightly help me, because it just takes slightly the weight off my shoulders.
I'll come see you tomorrow.
Oh, I haven't quite finished. Sorry, I've barely started. Thank you. Yeah, sorry. It was just the dinner server. He just popped his head through the curtains.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'll let you have your tea.
Okay.
I'll go and have a little look at your notes, and then I'll come and see you
Thank
tomorrow.
you,
See what I
Michelle.
can do.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, you too. Bye.
Conversations like, you want to meet the president, you have to wear a suit or something like that. Got to wear a suit. And do you regret, finally, that you might be talking to me here in Westminster as a British member of Parliament? Joined as a top one. It was only because of that by the name of Michael Gove, now Lord Gove, speaking to the nomination, that you're free to run for the governor of California. Yeah, I think that's a fair one. That was a lucky escape. I think that was a very good choice that they made for Michael there. I didn't expect well at all. I didn't maybe give it the thought I think all round it's worked out well. Clearly, there's a lot of people here in California who think I've got the arguments and the ideas that are going to save our beautiful state. And I'm very happy and honoured to be doing it. And actually, just on the like, people ask me, we've had a very high energy campaign, and that's just going to continue. On the road for over a year now, like morning till night, traveling this very big state, fourth biggest economy in the world, largest state by population in America. It's hard work, but I love it because it's an honor to do it. The only part, pretty much the only part I don't like is actually wearing all this, but I think that it's, it's appropriate. It's a particular role you're running for, and I think it's important to take it seriously. And so that's what I'm doing. Steve Hill, Republican candidate for governor of California, former chief advisor inside that history from Mr. David Cameron. Thank you very much for joining me on Political Thinking. Of course, great to be with you. Thank you, Nick. And Political Thinking was produced by Hannah Wilkinson. The impending heat will impact millions of us in the week ahead. Before the 6 o'clock news, Thomas Schaffernacker will be here with a full weather forecast. But first, the shipping forecast issued by the Met Office on behalf of the Maritime Coast Guard Agency at 1725 on Saturday, the 20th of June. The general synopsis at midday. Low 250 miles northeast of Iceland, 991. Slow moving, filling 999 by midday tomorrow. High Seoul, 1021. Expected 40 to 1030 by time. The area forecast for the next 24 hours. Northwest Viking, southwesterly 4 to 6. Showers, good. Southeast Viking, north Zero, south Zero, westerly or northwesterly 3 to 5. Showers,
has it gone down, Laurie?
40s prominent. Southwest becoming variable 2 to 4.
Last one then, that's the last one.
Variable 2 to 4. Fog patches for a time. Monitor good. Occasionally very cool. Fisher, west or northwest 3 to 5. Fair, good. German Light, northwesterly, veering northerly or northeasterly 3 or 4. Occasionally 5 later in south. Mainly fair, good. Occasionally poor. Humber, variable 2 to 4, becoming northeast 3 to 5. Thundery showers, fog patches, moderate or good. Occasionally very poor. Thames, Dover, southwest, becoming variable 2 to 4. Thundery showers, fog patches, moderate or good. Occasionally very poor. White, Portland, Plymouth, variable, becoming northeast later 2 to 4.
You've got a cup of tea.
5 later. Fog patches, moderate or good. Occasionally very poor.
This again
Got
is
a
variable,
cup of tea here. I'm sorry.
thundery showers,
Do you want this
fog patches,
garlic
or
bread?
all good.
No,
No.
I'm sorry.
Southeast Fitzroy,
Do you want
cyclonic, becoming
No.
north
No.
or northeast 3 to 5. Good, occasionally cool. Northwest Fitzroy, easterly or southeasterly 3 to 5. Occasionally 6 at first, fair, then thundery showers, good, occasionally cool. Seoul, easterly 3 to 5. Occasionally 6 in west, mainly fair, good, occasionally cool. Lundy, Fastnet, Irish Sea.
Hi, yeah, I'm okay. I heard, did you get the test for the Gardnerella at all?
So did the doctor come and speak to you?
Not, I don't know if it was a doctor, but basically what I need to explain is Gardnerella isn't tested in the NHS if the patient isn't symptomatic, but because I'm symptomatic, I googled it and went on the NHS website and it says they do test for it if the patient has symptoms. Because what the nurse said to me, she said that Gardnerella naturally occurs in the gut flora, which is right, but if it's at high levels, it causes symptoms of the infection, and that's why they do test for it if the patient has symptoms. And the reason I'm in this hospital for 7 days is because I have the symptoms. Thank you so much. Thank you. So I just was wondering if you could maybe re-put the request in explaining I am having symptoms of the infection.
I mean, the doctors can certainly do that.
Yeah, I just don't think I explained that myself well enough that I was having the symptoms.
No, you seem well informed.
Yeah, I am highly educated and I do a lot of reading, so not that that makes me any better than anyone else, but it's just like I know, basically when I say highly educated, I mean I've been to university, Edinburgh University, so I know how to read a journal. I know how to read a journal, yeah.
You need to be clued in about your own health.
Yeah, you do, you have to be clued in. There's a lot to remember every time the doctor comes over. I'm sort of trying to remember everything about the kidneys, the bladder, the liver, all the different abnormalities that have been found in the tests.
Just got your methanamine.
Oh yeah, thank you. Methanamine hypochlorite.
The hotter it will get. So in Wales, we can expect values up into the mid-20s. In East Anglia, the southeast, and some southern counties, temperatures may reach and exceed 13 Celsius tomorrow. Which starts on Monday, early hours of Monday, and lasts throughout the whole of Tuesday. And in the week ahead, we could see temperatures up to 36 Celsius in some spots.
Do you want any pain relief, Lydia?
Yes, please, that would be great.
Do you want paracetamol or do you need anything stronger?
Something a bit stronger would be good, yeah.
So, shall I give you paracetamol and codeine?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fascination with writing about the darker side of life began early, like primary school.
I wrote 12 pages, and it was a nice day when we told me my story, nobody came back alive.
And then I forgot to mention that the site manager came over to speak to me.
Yeah,
yeah, and I just explained everything and said I'm on antibiotics, they do have side effects. I do suffer with lots of
I know that you need
illnesses.
an antihistamine alongside it.
Yeah, I have to have the antihistamines, they will have side effects, and also I just basically said to her, I think that all of this stuff with the Gardnerella, it would be the specialist urogynecologist who would know what to do about that.
Yeah.
Because I said there's probably alternative ways of testing for a urogynecological infection. I was thinking, like, to be honest, like an overall pelvic scan would probably be a better idea, like a pelvic CT or a pelvic MRI to check for infection wherever it may be.
They might do CT KUV, so that's kidneys, ureter, bladder.
Oh, okay.
And pelvic scan.
Oh, that would be good. Yeah, that would probably show up a lot, I imagine. Do you think so? Is that what they said?
I'm just thinking along those lines that they could do that, but they haven't suggested it. But you're waiting for this MRI. What's your date of birth, Lydia?
It's the 14th of October 1994.
I can see all your allergies, but I'm not giving you any of that.
Oh, that's good, thank you.
So, what we've got? So we've got paracetamol, 2 codeine tablets, methanamine, and this is your anti-clot.
Oh, I don't have those.
You
I've
don't
not
have
had
it?
those. Yeah, I don't have those.
That's fine.
Because I've got quite good circulation, so. Yeah.
Just as a
Yeah.
precaution. That's all.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Oh my gosh, this coffee's gone cold.
Could you be talking?
I've been yapping on.
Israel launched a wave of attacks this morning, just hours after agreeing a ceasefire with Hezbollah, saying it was responding to the firing last night of dozens of projectiles by the Iran-backed group. President Trump had
Do you want me to close your curtain, Lydia?
Can you open if you like? Yeah.
between the US and Iran and signed 3 days ago.
What's your nurse name, by the way?
My nurse name?
Your nurse name. Some people don't like to give their real
It's
name.
alright, it's Kerry.
Kerry,
You
okay.
don't have to call me nurse.
It's Kerry. Oh, thank you.
Nice name.
Yeah. In work, I'm Kerry. Outside of work, I'm Superwoman.
Israel has continued with its attacks against Hezbollah, violating a local ceasefire. There's been no direct response from Washington. The U.S. military statement said the strait, the key economic waterway, remained open. All day, waves of deadly Israeli airstrikes took place across the south of Lebanon and the eastern Bekaa. In one of the attacks, a family of 4 was killed: a father, a mother, and their 2 children. Israeli media said it was responding to attacks by Hezbollah against Israeli troops occupying parts of southern Lebanon. Hezbollah said it had targeted Israeli forces trying to make advances under the cover of the ceasefire. Israel, which opposes the US truce with Iran, says it has no intention of pulling its troops out of Lebanon. Despite the conflict, US and Iranian officials are still expected to meet in Switzerland tomorrow.
Police say 9 people remain in a critical condition in hospital after yesterday's fatal train crash near Bedford. The train driver was killed and scores of passengers were injured when one East Midlands Railway passenger service ran into the back of another. Network Rail says there will be a complex recovery operation and no trains will run between London, St Pancras and Bedford this weekend. Our correspondent Joe Black sent this report from the scene of the crash.
This was recorded on one of the trains in the moments after the collision. There was panic and confusion after a stationary train was hit from behind. One of the drivers was killed. Alistair Adamson was a passenger.
All of a sudden there was a really big impact. Just immediately felt myself lurching forward and saw my colleagues across from me getting thrown around. It felt like a sequence of impacts.
Terry. Oh, sorry. Can I just ask one question?
In those moments.
Dr. Kazan prescribed me. So when I was just now was given methenamine hyperate, which is Hyprex, Dr. Kazan said I should be taking ascorbic acid with it because it helps the absorption of the methenamine. And someone told me about 4 days ago that they were going to order the ascorbic acid, but I haven't been administered it.
On the line just south of Bedford. Lucy Dorsey,
Yeah, I can ask Kerry.
British Transport Police.
Yeah, I will. Okay, thank you.
Of course, be a lot of questions as to what exactly happened last night. I would really like to reassure everyone that specialist investigators from British Transport Police are working with colleagues at the Rail Accident Investigation Branch to gather the facts.
The King has said he is greatly saddened and his thoughts and sympathies are with the family of the deceased and those injured. The Managing Director of East Midlands Railway, Will Rogers, said it was a profoundly sad day for the railway community.
Officials investigating the crash have said they will provide an update in the coming days. Our correspondent Simon Browning considers what the investigation will involve.
The UK rail industry has one of the best safety records in Europe after huge levels of investment in the last 20 years. But earlier this week, the Rail Accident Investigation Branch reported that a fatal collision between 2 trains in Powys 2 years ago, in which 1 person died, could have been avoided. The RAIB will now be working alongside the British Transport Police and Network Rail to determine the causes of yesterday's crash. Their investigation will aim to find cause, not blame. Trains are fitted with many data recording systems and most modern fleets have CCTV on board. Tony Miles, a railway journalist, says the data will likely answer what happened in the moments before impact.
The two questions will be, were the signals showing red and the train went past them, or has something catastrophically gone wrong with the electronic system that interlocks itself so it can't allow a dangerous situation to happen that allowed the train to go past. So there's an equivalent for the airline black boxes in each of the trains. They will have second-by-second data from the trains as to what was going on.
Network Rail said this was a complex recovery operation. Passengers are being encouraged to keep checking online for the latest travel information.
Counter-terrorism police are investigating a series of suspected anti-Muslim attacks that left 5 men injured in Edinburgh last night. Officers say they have arrested a 36-year-old white Scottish man. Here's our Scotland editor James Cook.
The attacks appear to have begun near a mosque in the west of the city yesterday evening and to have continued at multiple locations several miles apart. Footage posted on social media appears to show a bare-chested man with a large weapon roaming the streets of the city, vandalising a petrol station and battering the door of a pizzeria before being detained. According to police, 5 men in their 20s and 30s were hurt, with 3 requiring hospital treatment for injuries which are not life-threatening. The Scottish Association of Mosques says Muslims were targeted in the attacks. In a statement, Assistant Chief Constable Katrina Payton said there was no place for racism or faith-based hate in Scotland. The First Minister, John Swinney, echoed that message, saying he was deeply concerned by the incidents.
BBC News has been told that the Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, is among ministers who've indicated that Sir Keir Starmer should set out a timetable for his departure. The Prime Minister has vowed to fight any leadership contest after his potential challenger, Andy Burnham, won the Makerfield by-election on Thursday. Here's our political correspondent, Nick Eardley.
The pressure on the Prime Minister to quit is building. The Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander, last night urged him to draw up a timetable for his departure. The Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, is another who's indicated the Prime Minister should set out a plan to leave office. The Labour peer, Lord Faulkner, told today that the Prime Minister had lost his authority and should not contest any leadership challenge.
Everybody assumes that Andy Burnham is about to challenge for leadership, and everybody assumes he's going to win. So if you've got a Prime Minister who's only got at most weeks to go, he is not able to control his cabinet, he's not able to command the Commons, he's not able to deal with our allies and indeed our enemies in a way that is required.
Andy Burnham is giving Sir Keir Starmer the weekend to process the Makerfield result. Mr Burnham's allies hope Sir Keir will conclude he can't continue and agree to a transition, handing over power to Mr Burnham. But others have said there should be more scrutiny of the ideas being put forward by the people who could soon be leading the country. The Labour MP, Jess Phillips.
Lots of people don't know Andy Burnham, have never worked alongside him, and that's not his fault unless you're a Greater Manchester MP. And so I look forward to Andy Burnham arriving on Monday and those who are prospective candidates setting out their stall.
The Prime Minister has insisted publicly that he will continue and contest any leadership vote. He believes he has a mandate to govern and that key policies are starting to bear fruit. But there are a growing number of Labour politicians, all the way up to the Cabinet, who think his time has run out.
The Green Party has announced its candidate for the election to replace Andy Burnham as Mayor of Greater Manchester. She is Geraldine Coggins, who's been a councillor for Trafford since 2018. The election will be held on the 30th of July. The Met Office is warning of extreme heat on Monday and Tuesday in eastern and southern England, the Midlands and Wales. Forecasts suggest temperatures could reach as high as 36 Celsius in places. But as Joanna Keane reports, other parts of Europe are already sweltering in a heat wave.
This is already the second time this year that tens of millions of people across Western Europe are having to deal with a spell of extreme heat. In France, where a widespread and intense heatwave is expected, there have been emergency meetings and a red alert has been issued for more than a third of the country for tomorrow. In Paris, people are being given the chance to cool off, with some parks opening until midnight. A British tourist there, Matt Batten, is thinking ahead.
We're planning to go to museums in the afternoon when it's really, really hot. But I've also noticed there's lots of places giving out water as well. But the queues for the water fountains are just so long. So I think we're going to have to really take it day by day and just plan how hot it is and how we're feeling.
There are also alerts in countries including Spain, Germany and Portugal. Britain is just one of the countries advising people to check on the elderly and vulnerable. In Spain, some cities are offering libraries, lecture halls and sports centres as refuges where people can go until the worst of the heat has passed. Temperatures have been sent soaring by hot air from Africa, which has created a high-pressure heat dome. Scientists say human-driven climate change is amplifying these extremes, with heat waves, droughts and floods looking set to become more intense and frequent.
The row between the Prime Minister of Italy, Giorgia Meloni, and President Trump has deepened after he questioned her popularity and repeated his claim that she asked over and over for a photograph with him at the G7 summit earlier this week. Meloni responded on social media, saying that being Mr. Trump's friend had certainly not helped her popularity and that he should focus